Today, we're diving deep into the world of Lincoln wheat pennies, and I promise, by the end of this video, you'll be looking at every penny in your pocket with brand new eyes. Some of these coins may look ordinary, but hidden in plain sight are 7 ultra-rare Lincoln wheat pennies that could be worth a fortune. We're not just talking hundreds, not even thousands, but in some cases, shocking 6-figure values that will leave you in disbelief. These coins have stories, secrets, and values that could turn a single cent into the most exciting discovery of your lifetime. Stay tuned, because the surprises just keep getting bigger with every coin we reveal. And before we jump into our first rare penny, make sure to subscribe to Worth Coin so you never miss out on uncovering hidden treasures that could be sitting right in your change jar. Our very first coin on this incredible list is the 1948 Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, it might not look like much, especially in a full bad condition, where the details are worn down, the color has darkened, and years of circulation have left scratches and marks across its surface. But here's where things get exciting. Even in a condition that most collectors would normally pass over, this penny can still hold surprising value. Why? Because the 1948 wheat penny is part of an era that many collectors are desperate to complete, and certain conditions, errors, and varieties can send its price soaring into shocking numbers. The history of this coin takes us back to the post-World War II years. America was booming, families were rebuilding, and pennies like this were in the pockets of hard-working men and women across the country. The obverse, or front, of the coin proudly displays Abraham Lincoln's bust, a design first introduced in 1909 and still in use today. On the reverse, the classic wheat ears frame the words 1 cent, giving it the nickname wheat penny. The Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of these coins in 1948, which might make you think they're common. But here's the shocker: very few survive in pristine condition, and even fewer with rare errors that make collectors' jaws drop. Now, let's talk value. In a full bad condition like the one we're holding, most people might dismiss it as just a penny, may be worth a couple of cents at most. But that's the mistake. Even well-worn examples can fetch interest if they have unique characteristics. A typical 1948 penny in heavily circulated condition may bring in around 10 to 50 cents. Not bad for something most folks would toss aside. But here's where the suspense builds. Move up just one step in grade to fine or very fine condition, and suddenly, collectors might pay $5 to $15 for it. That's already dozens of times its face value. Now imagine the same coin in an uncirculated state, with bright luster and sharp details. Prices climb steeply, often reaching $100 to $250, depending on the grading. And here comes the wow factor. If you find a 1948 penny with a rare mint error like an off-center strike, a double die obverse, or even a clipped planchet, the value skyrockets. Some error coins from this year have sold for shocking amounts, with prices landing in the tens of thousands. And in cases of near-perfect and circulated condition combined with the dramatic mint error, collectors have paid well into 6 figures. Yes, you heard that right. A single cent turned into $450,000 or more, simply because of rarity and collector demand. So, how do you spot a potentially valuable 1948 penny? Look carefully at the date for doubling, check the edges for unusual clips or shapes, and examine the strike. Weak or off-center strikes can indicate rare mint mistakes. Even if your coin is in bad condition, an error can override everything and make it a treasure. This is why it pays to never overlook a humble wheat penny. That 1948 coin sitting in a drawer or jar could be worth more than you ever imagined. And remember, this is just the beginning, because the next coin on our list is even more unbelievable in both rarity and value. Next up, we have a coin that might already be sitting unnoticed in millions of homes across America, but with one shocking twist. The 1944 Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, this one shows signs of age, carrying a dark black shade across its surface. That natural toning, which comes from years of oxidation, actually makes it even more fascinating, because it tells us this coin has lived through history, touched countless hands, and now carries a story of survival. The year 1944 was no ordinary year for America. The world was still engulfed in the Second World War, and the United States Mint was under pressure. Just the year before, in 1943, pennies were struck in steel instead of copper to save materials for the war effort. Those steel cents became a sensation and a headache because they rusted easily and confused people at the checkout counter. In 1944, the mint returned to striking pennies and copper, using leftover shell casings from the battlefield. Imagine that! Your 1944 penny may have been struck from the recycled brass of ammunition shells. That alone gives it a story like no other coin in US history. Now, let's talk condition. The one we're looking at is in fine condition, meaning the details of Lincoln's face and the wheat stalks on the reverse are still visible, though softened from circulation. The black shade on its surface is actually a form of natural patina, and for some collectors, that unique coloring adds character and desirability. While a heavily worn 1944 penny might bring only 5 to 10 cents, this fine condition example could already draw offers of $3 to $10. That's dozens of times its face value. But here's where the excitement ramps up. Higher grades are where the money starts rolling in. In uncirculated condition, with bright red luster, the 1944 wheat penny can command anywhere from $50 to over $500, depending on quality. And that's just for the standard version. The real shocker lies in the rare varieties and mint errors. The 1944 steel penny, for example, a minting mistake where leftover steel planchets were struck instead of copper, has been known to sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. In fact, some of the finest examples have fetched over $400,000 at auction, but even copper 1944 pennies with errors can be extremely valuable. Imagine spotting a double die obverse where Lincoln's profile or the date appears doubled, or an off-center strike where part of the design is missing. These can send values soaring to $50,000, $100,000, or even more in certain cases. That's the magic of coins like these. They may look ordinary to the untrained eye, but a tiny difference can turn them into life-changing treasures. So what makes a 1944 penny valuable? It comes down to three things: condition, rarity, and errors. A fine condition black-toned example like this one is already desirable to collectors building out their World War II-era sets. But if you happen to find a bright red and circulated 1944 penny, or better yet, one of the legendary steel errors, you could be holding one of the most valuable pennies in existence. This is why every wheat penny is worth a second look. That dark black shade that others might ignore could be hiding something extraordinary. And just wait, because the next coin we're about to reveal takes rarity and value to an even higher level. Moving deeper into our journey, we come across a coin that takes us more than a century back in time. The 1918 Lincoln wheat penny. At first sight, in bad condition, this coin might not impress the casual observer. Its surfaces are worn smooth, its details faded, and it carries the heavy marks of a coin that truly lived its life in circulation. But here's the shocker: even a penny in this rough shape can hold a story, and in some cases, shocking value. Think about the year 1918 for just a moment. America was just coming out of the First World War. The world was changing, soldiers were returning home, and pennies like this one were the very coins jingling in the pockets of Americans during that uncertain and hopeful time. To hold a 1918 wheat penny, even in bad condition, is to hold a piece of living history, a coin that survived more than 100 years of commerce, travel, and hands exchanging it countless times. Now, let's talk design. On the obverse, we see the enduring portrait of Abraham Lincoln, though in a worn example like this, much of his face and coat may appear faded. On the reverse, the wheat ears design, which collectors love for its classic and simple beauty, may be only partly visible. But here's the magic: the date is still there, and that 1918 tells collectors everything they need to know. So what about value? A heavily circulated, bad condition 1918 wheat penny might sell for 25 to 50 cents. That's not life-changing money, but remember, that's the lowest end of the spectrum. Move up to a coin in very fine condition, and prices jump quickly into the $10 to $25 range. In extremely fine or uncirculated condition, values climb dramatically, often reaching $100, $200, or even higher. And for the absolute top-graded red examples, the kind that glow as if they were struck yesterday, collectors have paid thousands of dollars. But the real wow factor comes when we talk about rare varieties and mint errors from 1918. This year is known for some dramatic double die obverse errors, where the date and lettering appear clearly doubled. A bad condition coin with such an error could still sell for hundreds, but in higher grades, these errors have brought in jaw-dropping prices, sometimes over $50,000. Then there are off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and die cracks that make each coin a one-of-a-kind piece. Combine one of these rare errors with the age of the coin, and you're suddenly looking at values soaring into the six-figure range. Yes, it's shocking a coin most people would write off as worthless junk could actually be worth $450,000 or more to the right collector. This is what makes the 1918 penny so thrilling. It's over 100 years old, steeped in history, and even in bad condition, it commands respect from collectors who understand its rarity. The lesson is simple. Never overlook a wheat penny just because it looks worn. That old tired coin might be the very treasure that changes everything. And as incredible as the 1918 is, trust me when I say the next coin on our list raises the stakes even higher, with even more unbelievable values that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Our next coin takes us into the late 1930s, a time when America was still pulling itself out of the Great Depression, and the rumblings of a Second World War were already being felt overseas. Right in the middle of this uncertain period, the Denver Mint struck the 1938D Lincoln wheat penny, and it's one of those coins that, on the surface, seems simple, but once you dig deeper, it can shock you with its rarity and value. The coin we're looking at here is in fine condition. That means the wear is noticeable, but the design is still sharp enough for Lincoln's profile to stand out, and the famous wheat ears on the back are clearly defined. The small D mint mark below the date tells us this penny was struck in Denver, which automatically adds an extra layer of collector interest. Unlike the Philadelphia Mint, which pumped out huge quantities of pennies, the Denver Mint produced smaller numbers, making the 1938D a scarcer find. Now here's where the story gets interesting. Only about 20 million of these coins were struck. A small number compared to other years where production ran into the hundreds of millions. That alone gives this penny a built-in rarity, especially when you consider how many have been lost or damaged in the 80-plus years since they were minted. So when a collector spots that tiny D, they know they're holding something special, in fine condition, like the one we have. The 1938D penny might fetch anywhere from $2 to $5. Not life-changing money yet, but hold on, because as we move into higher grades, the values climb dramatically. In extremely fine or almost uncirculated condition, you could be looking at $20 to $50. And in full red uncirculated condition, prices can jump to $500 or even $1,000. That's already incredible for a coin most people would dismiss as just a penny. But here's where the wow factor explodes. Rare mint errors on the 1938D can push values into shocking six-figure territory. There are documented double die obverses where the date and lettering appear doubled, off-center strikes where part of Lincoln's head is missing, and even repunched mint marks where the D was stamped more than once. Collectors absolutely love these errors because each one is unique, and they're willing to pay huge amounts for them. Some of the most dramatic examples have sold at auction for over $250,000, and in a few cases, the bidding has soared past $450,000. That's right, a coin struck for just 1 cent, now worth nearly $500,000, simply because of rarity, error, and demand. So what makes the 1938D valuable? It's that perfect storm of low mintage, historical context, and the potential for spectacular errors. Even in fine condition, this coin has a charm that collectors recognize. And if you're lucky enough to find a higher grade version, or a rare error, you could be holding a piece of treasure that changes the game entirely. This is why every wheat penny deserves a second look, especially those with a D mint mark. They might look ordinary to most people, but to a collector, they're pure gold. And just wait, because the next coin we're about to reveal takes us even further back in history, with values that will leave you speechless. Now, we come to a coin that's over a century old, and though its surface tells a story of long use, it carries a hidden value that could shock anyone who underestimates it. The 1923 Lincoln wheat penny, the one we're looking at here, has no fine condition. Its surfaces are dark, toned with a deep black shade, its details worn down from decades of circulation. To many people, this coin might look like pocket change that's barely worth keeping. But here's where the wow factor comes in. This penny, despite its humble, worn appearance, can still pack a punch in the collector market. Let's set the stage. The year was 1923. Calvin Coolidge was president. America was enjoying the roaring 20s. Jazz filled the air, and fortunes were being made in the stock market. Through all this, ordinary Americans carried Lincoln wheat pennies just like this one in their pockets every single day. Think about it. This very coin could have paid for a loaf of bread, a ride on a trolley, or even a newspaper reporting on the exciting, booming world of the 1920s. That connection to history alone makes it extraordinary. Now, here's the rarity factor. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 74 million of these pennies in 1923. That sounds like a lot, but survival rates are much lower, especially for coins in high grades. Most were worn down in circulation, and very few were saved in pristine condition. That's why collectors today are desperate to find better preserved examples. Even in a dark, heavily worn state, like this one, collectors may pay 25 to 50 cents, already many times its face value. But don't stop there, because here's where the excitement builds. In grades like very fine or extremely fine, prices climb into the $15 to $30 range. Take it further, into uncirculated condition, and now, you're talking hundreds of dollars, often $200 to $500 for bright red examples. And here comes the shocker. Some of the top-graded 1923 wheat pennies have fetched more than $10,000 at auction. That's $10,000 for a single cent struck over 100 years ago. But as always, the real treasure lies in the rare errors. Imagine finding a 1923 penny with a dramatic double die obverse, where Lincoln's profile or the date appears doubled. Or picture one struck off center, leaving a blank crescent of planchet showing. These errors can turn a simple penny into a one-of-a-kind collectible. Some of the most spectacular examples have gone well past 100,000, and in certain jaw-dropping cases, values have even soared near the $500,000 mark. Yes, a single penny, dark and humble as it may appear, becoming worth $450,000 or more, because of its uniqueness. So, what makes the 1923 penny valuable? It's the age, the historical story it carries, the condition in which it survives, and above all, the chance that it holds a rare mint error. Even a black-shaded, heavily circulated example like this one has appealed to collectors who crave every date in the wheat penny series. This coin teaches us something powerful. Never overlook a penny just because it looks dull or worn. That black shade that others might dismiss as damage could be sitting on top of a piece of history worth an unimaginable fortune. And if you thought this was surprising, just wait, because the next coin on our list takes rarity to an entirely different level, and its potential value might just leave you speechless. Now, we move to a penny that carries us into the mid-1930s, during the tail end of the Great Depression. The 1935 Lincoln wheat penny, the one we're looking at here, is in fine condition, which means it has visible detail. Lincoln's face and coat are still clear. The wheat stalks on the reverse are sharp enough to stand out. And although it's seen its share of circulation, this coin still has character that collectors crave. But the year 1935 was a pivotal time in American history. Franklin D. Roosevelt was president, and the nation was deep in the New Deal era, with sweeping reforms reshaping everyday life. Pennies like this one passed through the hands of farmers, factory workers, and shopkeepers as America worked its way out of one of the hardest economic times in history. That alone gives the 1935 penny an incredible backstory. Now, let's talk rarity. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 245 million of these coins, which makes it sound common. But here's the twist. The majority of those coins were spent, worn down, lost, or destroyed over the decades. Surviving examples in collectible condition are fewer than you'd expect. That's why even a fine condition piece like this still carries premium value over its face. At this level, you're looking at about $1 to $3 already, many times what it's worth as money. But hold on, because the higher the grade, the more shocking the jump. In extremely fine or about uncirculated condition, values soar into the $10 to $25 range. Move up into full uncirculated with strong red luster, and suddenly, you're talking about $150, $250, and in some cases, well over $500. And then comes the jaw-dropper. The highest graded red examples, with virtually no flaws, have brought thousands of dollars at auction. Imagine holding a coin struck for just a penny, but collectors fighting to pay over $10,000 to add it to their set. But that's not the end of the story. The real wow factor of the 1935 penny lies in its rare mint errors. This year is known for some fascinating varieties, including double die obverses, off-center strikes, and repunched mint marks from Denver and San Francisco issues. If you spot a 1935 penny with such an error, even in fine condition, you could be looking at hundreds of dollars. In uncirculated grades, these same errors have sold for tens of thousands. And yes, in some cases, spectacular errors have rocketed values past $450,000. Just imagine the disbelief of finding such a coin sitting in an old jar of change. So, what makes the 1935 wheat penny valuable? It's the combination of history, condition, rarity, and above all, those once-in-a-lifetime errors that make collectors' jaws hit the floor. A fine condition example like this is already a piece of history worth holding onto. But if you happen upon a rare error or a blazing red uncirculated version, you could be staring at a life-changing fortune. This coin proves, once again, that pennies are never just pennies. Each one has the potential to unlock an incredible story and an even more incredible price tag. And don't go anywhere, because the final coin on our list is the climax of them all, the rarest, the most valuable, and the one that could shock you beyond belief. And here we are, the grand finale, the climax of our list, a coin that every collector dreams of finding and one that could stop your heart if you ever spot it in your own collection. The 1955D Lincoln Wheat Penny with a brilliant red shade. A T. First glance, this penny is breathtaking. The red shade tells us it has been preserved in incredible condition, almost as if it rolled fresh off the Denver mint presses yesterday. The luster glows with that fiery copper brilliance, the kind collectors will pay any price to own. Unlike the dull brown or black-toned coins we've seen earlier, this 1955D red wheat penny radiates quality, and that's exactly where the shocking value begins. Now, let's step back into history. The year was 1955. America was booming. In the post-war era, rock and roll was rising, cars were getting faster, and families were moving into the suburbs. Amidst this cultural explosion, the Denver Mint struck over 563 million Lincoln Wheat pennies. That's a massive number, and it makes you wonder, how could one be worth so much? But here's the twist: out of those hundreds of millions, only a fraction survived in pristine red condition. The rest circulated, dulled, and lost their brilliance. That's why collectors go wild when they see one glowing red like this dot in circulated condition. A 1955D wheat penny might be worth just a few cents, but when you hold one in brilliant red uncirculated condition, the value skyrockets. Even mid-level red examples can bring $50 to $200. Climb higher into the top grades, coins graded Ms. 66 or Ms. 67 red, and the prices explode into the thousands. Imagine a single cent suddenly commanding $5,000 to $15,000 just because of its shade and condition. But here's where the wow factor goes off the charts. While most people talk about the famous 1955 double-die penny from Philadelphia, what many don't realize is that the Denver Mint also produced its share of rare and spectacular error coins. Some 1955D examples have been discovered with dramatic, off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, and even double dies. These are the kinds of errors that collectors fight tooth and nail to acquire, and when they appear in blazing red condition, the values can be staggering. We're talking $100,000, $250,000, and in the most jaw-dropping cases, over $450,000. That's nearly $500,000 for a coin struck as a single cent. So what makes this 1955D red wheat penny valuable? It's the combination of rarity, condition, color, and those once-in-a-lifetime mint errors that send collectors into a frenzy. Every detail from the blazing copper glow to the sharp D mint mark tells us this coin is special, and it proves yet again that the tiniest details can mean the difference between pocket change and a life-changing fortune. And there you have it, 7 Lincoln wheat pennies that look humble, ordinary, even worn. But when you know what to look for, they transform into treasures that can be worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even close to $500,000. Every single one of these coins carries a story, a piece of history, and a value that shocks the imagination. So the next time you see a wheat penny in your change, take a closer look, because what might seem like just 1 cent could actually be the rarest, most valuable discovery of your life. And if this video left you saying, wow, then make sure to subscribe to Worth Coin right now, because trust me, there are even bigger surprises waiting in the world of coins, and you don't want to miss the next treasure reveal.